Co-stars? Sure. Friends? Not even close. E.T. has learned there has definitely been tension between Snow White leading ladies Gal Gadot and RachelZegler, and they're, quote, not close by any means.
RachelZegler and Gal Gadot, two powerhouse actresses at the center of Disney's most controversial live-action remake. But while they played rivals on screen in Snow White, it turns out that off-screen, they weren't exactly besties either. From awkward red carpet encounters to behind-the-scenes drama that had Disney execs scrambling, their relationship went from professional co-stars to something a lot colder. And now, after Snow White's catastrophic failure, the feud between these two is worse than ever. What really happened between Rachel and Gal? And why is Rachel struggling to find friends in Hollywood? Let's get into it.
RachelZegler just had one of the most disliked trailers in history with Snow White, but now after all the controversy, she's come out slamming Gal Gadot.
Mirror, mirror on the wall. Which Snow White stars aren't friends at all? Turns out Gal Gadot and RachelZegler's on-screen rivalry wasn't just acting, because behind the scenes, things were just as icy. With Snow White already making headlines for all the wrong reasons, the drama between these two leading ladies has only made things worse. Reports say they barely spoke on set, awkwardly avoided each other during press events, and now, after the movie's catastrophic box office failure, tensions have hit an all-time high. So, what really went down between Gal and Rachel? And is this just a clash of personalities? Or did Rachel's controversial reputation finally push things too far? Let's dive in. After months of controversy and online backlash, Disney's Snow White finally hit theaters. And let's just say the numbers were brutal. The studio had high hopes, expecting a $100 million opening weekend. But reality hit hard when the movie barely scraped past $87 million. And it wasn't just the box office numbers that spelled disaster. Reviews were disastrous, making this one of the worst-rated live-action Disney remakes ever. So, what went wrong? Well, if you ask fans, critics, or even some Disney insiders, one name keeps coming up: RachelZegler. Even before the movie's release, Rachel had already alienated a huge part of the Disney fan base. From calling the original Snow White outdated to making it clear she wasn't exactly thrilled about playing the role, she gave audiences every reason to skip the film. But if her comments weren't bad enough, the real drama started when her relationship with co-star Gal Gadot began unraveling in public. And that's where things take a turn. Because this feud didn't just stay behind closed doors, it got messy.
Disney spent a whopping $270 million on the film. The studio opted for a small LA premiere, held Saturday in the middle of the day with limited press. Zegler greeted children dressed as Snow White. She was not at Disneyland on Sunday, where Gal Gadot promoted the film, surrounded by children dressed as her character, the Evil Queen.
If there's one thing that can tank a movie before it even hits theaters, it's bad press, and RachelZegler delivered plenty of it. Instead of hyping up Snow White, she seemed to be doing the exact opposite. In interviews, she called the original 1937 film outdated, implied that Prince Charming was a stalker, and even suggested that her version of Snow White was a leader rather than someone searching for love. Now, reimagining a classic isn't necessarily a bad thing, but Rachel's tone? It came across as disrespectful, especially to die-hard Disney fans who adored the original.
RachelZegler is not doing anything to silence all of those reports, rumors, and online chatter that she and Gal Gadot are beefing. Yes, beefing.
And it didn't stop there. Her dismissive attitude toward the film made it clear she thought she was above it. Instead of celebrating the role, she took every chance to criticize the story, leaving audiences wondering, if she doesn't even like this movie, why should we? Disney was already fighting an uphill battle with this remake, but Rachel's words practically handed the haters their ammunition. But if you thought that was bad, things got way more heated when her off-screen drama collided with her Snow White co-star, Gal Gadot. Because once politics got involved, that's when the real damage was done. Things between RachelZegler and Gal Gadot started off as professional, at least on the surface. But as Snow White's press tour ramped up, their interactions became increasingly awkward, and fans started to notice the cracks. The two actresses had zero chemistry during interviews, often cutting each other off or dodging questions about their on-screen relationship. At first, people chalked it up to personality differences. Rachel is outspoken and sarcastic, while Gal is polished and diplomatic. But behind the scenes, there was way more at play. Their tension took a sharp turn when Rachel's social media activity started making headlines. In late 2023, Rachel began posting and liking politically charged tweets, many of which were seen as controversial given Gal's Israeli background. While Gal has always been vocal about her support for Israel, Rachel's online presence signaled that she had a very different stance. Things escalated to the point where security concerns were raised for Gal, leading Disney to step in and attempt to downplay the entire situation.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
And that's when the distance became undeniable. The once friendly exchanges between Rachel and Gal disappeared. Their interactions at events became cold, and by the time the movie premiered, they looked more like strangers than co-stars. Some even speculated that Disney forced them to appear together just to keep up appearances. But if fans were hoping for a dramatic red carpet showdown, what actually happened might have been even worse: a painfully obvious silent treatment. By the time Snow White's promotional tour hit full swing, the tension between RachelZegler and Gal Gadot was impossible to ignore. Fans were expecting to see some playful chemistry between the movie's two biggest stars. After all, Gal played the evil queen, and Rachel played Snow White. But instead of fun banter, their interviews were filled with forced smiles, awkward silences, and clipped responses. One particular interview went viral when Rachel tried to joke about how the evil queen was the real star of the movie, only for Gal to respond with a polite but obviously fake laugh. It was clear that whatever had been brewing behind the scenes had turned into full-on distance. Even at red carpet events, the two barely interacted, standing apart whenever possible. Body language experts even analyzed their appearances, noting that Gal often angled herself away from Rachel, something that doesn't happen when co-stars are genuinely close. And let's not forget the way Disney handled all of this. The studio tried to bury the tension, forcing them into joint interviews and carefully scripted moments. But the damage was already done. Fans could tell something was off. The more Rachel talked, the more audiences turned on her, blaming her for Snow White's disastrous PR. Meanwhile, Gal played it smart, keeping things professional but distant, making it clear she wasn't about to get dragged into the mess. At this point, Rachel wasn't just facing backlash from Disney fans, she was struggling to find allies in Hollywood. And when she finally spoke out about how hard it was to make friends in the industry, it only added fuel to the fire. After Snow White's disastrous press cycle, RachelZegler found herself in an even bigger problem. She wasn't just losing the audience's support, but she was also struggling to find allies in Hollywood. And when she publicly admitted that she was having a hard time making friends in the industry, that only added fuel to the fire. During a recent interview, Rachel opened up about how isolating fame had become, saying that she didn't have many close friends in Hollywood and often felt misunderstood. While some fans sympathized, others saw it as a direct consequence of her own actions. Rachel had already built a reputation for being opinionated and difficult to work with, and many believed that her inability to connect with people in the industry was because she had burned too many bridges. On the other hand, Gal Gadot handled the Snow White controversy gracefully, avoiding the drama and maintaining her spotless industry reputation. She continued booking high-profile projects while Rachel's name became synonymous with controversy. Casting rumors began circulating, with some insiders claiming that studios were hesitant to hire Rachel due to the backlash she attracted. And with Hollywood being all about connections, Rachel's growing isolation wasn't a good sign. If even a co-star like Gal Gadot, who has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, wasn't eager to keep in touch, what did that say about Rachel's standing in Hollywood? Could she bounce back from this, or was she already on her way to being another cautionary tale of a rising star who burned out too fast? RachelZegler's Hollywood journey started with so much promise. A fresh face, a lead role in West Side Story, and the backing of a major studio. But after the Snow White disaster, a failed PR strategy, and a very public fallout with Gal Gadot, the question now is, can she recover? Hollywood has seen stars go from blacklisted to beloved before, but Rachel's situation is tricky. Her reputation for being outspoken has already made her a polarizing figure, and with studios prioritizing bankable, controversy-free talent, she might struggle to land major roles. On the other hand, if she plays her cards right, staying out of drama, picking projects that showcase her talent, and winning back public favor, she might be able to rebuild her image. As for Gal Gadot, she walked away from the Snow White chaos unscathed, proving once again why she remains one of Hollywood's most respected actresses. While Rachel faces career uncertainty, Gal is already onto her next big project, leaving this chapter behind. So what's next for Rachel? Will she manage to turn things around, or is Hollywood quietly closing the door on her career? One thing's for sure, the industry never forgets, and Rachel's next move could make or break her future. What do you think? Is there a redemption arc waiting for her? Or is this the beginning of the end?